Welcome back to the Tween Sundays podcast, a Christian podcast that explores the gospel message and encourages holding God's word close to your heart between Sundays. It's Nathan. I've got Ryland on the other end over here. We're back together for what feels like the first time in forever. Yes, as Ryland alluded, in last Saturday's episode, I want to say.
Past two episodes.
My daughter made her arrival. She came a little earlier than expected, but it's all good. We're at home. We're hanging out. She's growing. I made the comment earlier that we've been home a week at this point now, and it's like, dude, she's grown like 14 foot, it feels like. But it's all good. Thank you guys for praying. But yeah, I'm excited to get back into this.
Sorry, you glitched out on me there on the Zoom call. I had no clue
You're good.
when you were done talking. But yeah, like Nathan said, it feels like it's been forever. You know, I was on vacation and then mission trips for a little bit, and then we get back. You know, we finally get back into the swing of things again, and then boom, Nathan has a kid. And so it's like one thing after the next, but hopefully this is the last big event that happens, barring anything crazy, and we'll get back to normal uploading schedule and dual studies and whatever. My classes have started back, so that's good, but that's going easy. Yeah, let's get into it. I'm excited for this one.
Absolutely. We hope that today's episode is a good one, something that you can learn from. Me and Ryland definitely, we kind of struggled trying to find something, and then we agreed on this, and we hope that you'll get something from it. But we're going to be in the book of Joshua, chapter 5, and we're going to start in verse number 13 and read through the rest of the chapter. So it's only 3 verses. I'll give you a second to turn there, and then I'll read.
Do you want to talk about, we're going to title this kind of choosing sides, so keep that in mind as we kind of move along. Think about duality, think about binary decisions, stuff like that. So just kind of keep that in mind as we reread this and we pull out our points. Choosing sides.
There you go. This is why I need Ryland on here, because he says all the things that I forget to say. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and read, and then we'll go right into the episode. Starting in verse 13, it says, "And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him, with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said, Art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so." Like I said, it's going to be a really short read, so hopefully, we can keep your attention during these couple of points here. But the first thing that I kind of want to lay some background out here. Some people might not know a whole lot about Joshua, so I'm going to do my best to give you the crash course, 45-second Joshua story to get you caught up to speed here. Joshua was one of the 12 original spies that went into the promised land to see if they could take it. That's the children of Israel. And then he and Caleb are the only 2 that came back with a good report saying yes, that they could take it. Obviously, the children of Israel listened to the 10 rather than the 2, wandered around in the wilderness for a little bit longer, and then this leads to Joshua now taking over as rightful ruler, or leader. I don't say ruler, but leader of the children of Israel and their army. And so, we find that during all of this time that Joshua was a spy for the children of Israel, but then he also was the leader, that he had been spoke to by the Lord many times. He talked to the Lord had talked to him. They'd had this communication with each other. But this is the first appearance, and I used air quotes here, first appearance that the Lord makes to him right here. And we find that he appears to him near Jericho. And if you know anything about the story of Joshua, you know that Jericho is that's what everybody knows Joshua for, is Jericho. And so this angel appears, or the captain, or whatever you want to use to title it, appears to Joshua near Jericho, which is where Joshua was supposed to be. And so that kind of leads into this first thought of, we can't pick sides, right? Because we're talking about choosing sides here. We can't pick sides and try to side up with the Lord but then drag him over into wherever it is that we want to be. We've got to stick right with his plan if we're picking the Lord.
Yeah, and Nathan alluded to it, right? Jericho was the destination. And while he was talking about this, I couldn't help but think of Jonah and Jonah's story on how he was supposed to go to Tarshish. No, supposed to go to Nineveh, but he fled to Tarshish. I can never get those two right, goodness gracious. So he's supposed to go to Nineveh, he fled to Tarshish, and in my mind, that's kind of how people in 2026 act, right? They will venture off from wherever else they're supposed to be. The Lord's like, hey, I want you to go minister to this homeless people on the Walmart, your local Walmart, right? I want you to go talk to the homeless people there about Jesus. And we'll go to the other side of town. We'll go to the other state. We'll go to wherever just to avoid our calling. Or we'll go somewhere where we obviously know the presence of the Lord will not be, right? We're indulging in sin. We're going to these sinful places. We're going to, quote unquote, house of sins, whatever you want to call them. And then we expect to drag the Lord there. We're like, hey, Lord, will you bless this scenario? Like, will you, show up in whatever way you see as fit? And we're like, hey, Lord, show up in whatever way you see as fit. And we're at a gentleman's club, right? Or we're smoking pot with our friends and we're like, hey, show up in whatever way you see as fit. Now, he might show up, but he will convict you of your actions. He might show up and be like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. He's not going to show up and bless you with his presence like he did with Joshua here, right? Because Joshua was en route to where he was supposed to be. And so he found himself in presence and favor with the Lord, as opposed to fleeing to wherever else he felt like going, and then just, like Nathan said, trying to drag the Lord to your personal side instead of trying to, I don't know how to word this, he was trying to pull the Lord where he wanted to be instead of put himself where the Lord wanted him to be. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, definitely. And Ryland talked about it. Like, we see that a lot in the day that we live now, where it's, oh, well, I want the Lord's will for my life, but I also want to keep doing whatever it is that I have been doing. I want to,
Yes.
I want to keep this like 2 or 3 little sins over here that are not that bad, but I still want to have the Lord's will for my life. It's like, nah, you gotta pick the Lord, right? You gotta choose the Lord's side. You can't just, harbor up all of these things and then sprinkle a little bit of the Lord dust on it and it makes everything okay, right? No, it doesn't work that way.
I like how you said that. We pick and choose what parts of Christianity we want, right? I use the term selective sinner sometimes. We select the sins that we're comfortable with, and then we judge others based on the ones we're not. So we'll select our comfort sins, right? Well, I find comfort in whatever, getting drunk. I find comfort in drunkenness, but heaven forbid someone go commit adultery, with their wife, right? Like that type deal. We want to pick and choose which parts of the gospel we choose to believe and which parts of the gospel we apply, and then we'll just forget about everything else, right? Like I think of the verse where it talks about judge not lest you not be judged, right? A lot of people will cut it off at judge not, and they just exclude the part lest you not be judged, right? They pick and choose. That's picking and choosing. That's cherry picking what you want the gospel to say, in a sense. And I've talked about that before in my FAQ study, right? Of people will twist and turn the gospel to fit their lifestyle instead of twisting their lifestyle to fit the gospel, right? And that's how it should be. We should be changing our lifestyle to fit what the gospel, what the Bible says, instead of twisting what God says, what the Bible says, whatever, to fit our lifestyle.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's just it's a thought of, I'm going to pick the Lord in this scenario. And it's not just, well, I picked the Lord in one scenario today, so I'm covered for the day. It's I'm going to pick the Lord in every scenario that comes up during my day. And if you start doing that, then, more things go right than they do go wrong. It may not always seem that way, but like you pick the Lord will have, I gotta be really careful. The Lord will have favor towards you. Not saying that, oh, well, I'm picking the Lord and he's going to, dump $1 million in my mailbox, but also he's going to dump a blessing out on you. He might like, hey, you're picking the Lord. You're standing up for the Lord in your workplace. He's gonna have a little favor towards you. He's gonna push something towards you to say, hey, I appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've been talking about the binary decision of Jesus versus the world, but now let's kind of move into the world versus the world, right? The binary decision and the trap of choosing between two options of secular earthly things. I just wanted to point out the power of neither, right? And that's kind of our second point. So Joshua asks a question to this commander who Nathan believes to be an angel, and I'm not sure if anyone listening believes to be an angel as well, whatever you choose to believe, Joshua, the premise of his question is essentially option A or option B, right? It's option 1 or option 2. He is offering him no middle ground, and he's forcing this commander to choose a side. The commander does not choose a side. He says, I think this is like the best possible answer, right? He says, neither, let me just quote the text. I read out the CSB translation. Verse 14 says, neither, he replied, I have now come as commander of the Lord's army. He didn't want to be, he was doing the Lord's work, so he didn't want to be sorted into this earthly, this human category just for doing the Lord's work, for being a commander of the Lord's army, right? And so I just had it noted that, and we just kind of talked about it. Our faith shouldn't match 100% every doctrine, every belief, every moral, so like whatever, of like a political party or a cultural movement or a social group or whatever. Because if your faith matches 100% of those things, you're not necessarily following the King, you're not following the Messiah, you're not following Jesus, you're following an agenda.
Yeah, right. And I had it written down that, this is how we should be, right? Ryland talked about the power of neither. That's how we should be. It should not be that we are choosing, the lesser of two evils, or, I agree with what 80% of option A is, but I agree with what 70% of option B is, so I'm going to pick option A. No, we're going to pick the Lord in each, like I talked about just a second ago, we're going to pick the Lord in each scenario. If it was a test question, it would be write your own answer in, and we're picking the Lord, because we're not picking between, like I said, the lesser of two evils. I remember, you guys know I'm a teacher, and I've had kids before, like on a test, where they were like, well, I didn't even know what to do, so I just picked an answer. That's a lot of times how Christians live, right? We don't know what to do, so we just pick an answer. All right, we'll just side up with anything because, that's what everybody else is doing. But no, we got to be like this commander, this angel, whatever you want to call this person. They're going to pick the Lord's side. All right, whatever side the Lord's on, that's the side I want to be on.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, like, choosing neither in these scenarios isn't being, like, it's not being lazy. It's not being, like, I don't know, like cowardly. It's not being, like, lazy or cowardly. It's just understanding that there's an authority higher than us. There's an authority higher than the President of the United States. There's an authority higher than whatever leader of a cultural movement there is, right? There's an authority higher than our local governor or our local Senate representative or House representative or whatever, right? There's a higher authority, and his name is Jesus Christ. And so when offered a question, when asked a question that offers no middle ground, we should just say neither, right? I'm serving Jesus Christ. I'm recognizing the higher authority. I'm going to stand with Jesus. I'm not going to stand with a certain side, right? And I think it's important to ask ourselves every day, right? Because we want to leave you some encouragement as you leave this episode. Ask yourself every day, like if someone came up to you and asked who you were, like if I asked Nathan to define himself in like a sentence, what would your answer look like, right? Are you going to answer, yeah, well, I'm a 6'5", I'm not 6'5", but I'm a 6'5" white. I voted Republican in the last election. I generally associate myself, I'm a Carolina fan, all that. You could say all that. Or somebody's like, hey, Ryland, who are you? I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. That's what it should be, right? We should not let earthly factions define us. We should stand with Jesus instead of standing with a certain side.
Yeah. And again, we can take a lot here from what Joshua did from this, right? He heard what this commander said. He heard, and then he based his response off of that, rather than, I'm just going to go attack this guy because he's standing here looking at me. It's pick the Lord's side and then go from there. Whatever the Lord wants you to do from there, he'll give you the instructions to do it.
Yeah, and that kind of bridges well into my next point. I think the last point that we kind of have as we were kind of planning for this. So Nathan talked about Joshua heard the commander's answer, and then it says, still in verse 14, Joshua bowed with his face to the ground in homage and asked him, what does my Lord want to say to his servant? The commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, remove the sandals from your feet, for the place you are standing is holy. And Joshua did that. And so I just had it that sometimes we need to drop our personal swords in life, right? Notice the shift in Joshua's posture. At first, he is this super tall, like buff army man, right? He's got his weapon drawn. He's interrogating other people. And then in like the next verse, he's face first on the ground out of reverence and out of worship and out of respect, right? And so again, we're trying to relate this to present day, right? We love to yield our swords, our personal swords, right? Our words, our actions, our hateful, the hateful side of us in cultural fights, political debates, right? We keep going back to politics because that's what divides humans the most, or like online arguments about sports, about movies, about whatever, right? But I just had it noted that we can't really drop to our knees in true worship and true reverence to Christ while still having our swords drawn, right? Sometimes we have to lay down our desire, and this is talked about in the life of Jesus on earth. Sometimes we have to lay down our desire to win arguments in order to bow down to God, right? And that's kind of how I view this here.
Yeah. I mean, if you really like look at what Joshua did, Joshua is the leader of this army. He is the one that they are all looking to for direction, right? All of the soldiers in the children of Israel army, or whatever you want to call it, they're all looking at Joshua for what are we going to do here? And Joshua drops to his knees and worships, almost as a like, this is what you're supposed to, not a, almost, it is what you're supposed to be doing, right? Looking at the children of Israel and saying, this is how we should be approaching these things, right? Not well, we're just going to, run through, cut people's heads off, whatever you want to do, we'll do it our own way. No, it was we're going to worship, and we're going to have the Lord. We're going to pick the Lord in each situation, each scenario, right? I think we've talked about it on here before, of like who's fighting our battles.
Yes, David sparing
right?
Saul.
Like if we are more willing to pick the Lord in a scenario, that gives the Lord more room to work to fight our battle. If we're not going to pick the Lord, he's not just going to force himself to fight our battles.
Yeah. I just had a little note, and this is the last thing I had written in my notes. And we've talked about recruiting God to your side in this episode. Don't walk through life looking for this fight and trying to recruit God to your cause, recruiting God to your army or whatever. Just show up with your heart open. Show up with a heart ready to be changed. Show up with a heart ready to change others, right? Nathan talked about who fights your battles. That was the story of David sparing Saul, right? Imagine if David had finally retaliated, right? Saul, you've tried to kill me. I can't remember the number. Was it 7? 7 times. Saul had tried to kill David 7 times from the point that we read in 1 Samuel chapter 24. Imagine if David had retaliated and then tried to recruit God to his cause, right? Oh, well, God, Saul's tried to kill me 7 times, so I tried to kill him once. Like, you're still in favor with me, or I'm still in favor with you, right? No. David showed up with his personal sword, his spiritual sword, tucked away with his heart open, right? Because he knew that the Lord was on his side. He didn't have to drag him to his agenda because he did not already get involved with the agenda. I hope I'm making sense. I'm kind of all over the place. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And again, I think it's like you just, Ryland talked about it great right there. You can't recruit the Lord to your side if your side is wicked, right? If your intentions are wicked, right? Oh, well, Lord, I want you, I talked about this a little bit ago. You can't have those specific 3 or 4 sins that you want to keep as your like, I'll keep those whenever I need them, and I'm going to sprinkle the Lord over everything else in my life. It doesn't work that way. Ryland brought up with David and Saul, right? All David had to do, right? If David wanted to kill Saul, I don't think anybody would have said anything to him. I don't think anybody would have said anything to David about, oh, well, why'd you kill him? Because David had reason and right to kill him. I used air quotes there on the word right. I don't want you to think that David had the right to kill Saul. But like, and if David would have went back to the Lord, like Ryland said, and said, oh, well, you still got favor on me. I'm still the one you've chosen to lead Israel. It doesn't work that way. It does not work with you manipulating the Lord into however it is that you want him to benefit you, kind of an idea.
Yeah. So all in all, I guess if we had to summarize it, or if I had to summarize it, just align yourself with the Lord. We've talked about the stick of truth, right? Don't draw your own line in the sand and then try to affirm the line that you've drawn is okay and biblical. No, there's already a biblical line that's drawn. Like, that's the beauty of this. You don't have to draw your own lines. You don't have to draw your own, like, what's right and what's wrong, right? That's already been given to us, and it's called the Bible. Like, we have it, in our hands. Like, I'm holding my Bible right now. We have it in our hands, ready to be read and ready to be applied. So read that, align yourself accordingly. You don't have to draw your own line and then bend it to make sure it fits. There's already a line there. Make sure you're on the right side of it.
Yeah. And again, the more you do that, the easier it becomes to do, right? Oh, well, I'm going to pick the Lord in each scenario today. Then tomorrow it becomes a little easier to pick the Lord in each scenario. Then the next day it becomes a little easier because you become, I don't want to say accustomed to serving the Lord, but it becomes just almost second nature of, hey, Ryland, who are you? Well, I'm a follower of Christ. Right, that's my identity, rather than, oh, well, I'm this, and this, and I go to church on Sundays. Right? I'm a follower of Christ. I do what Christ tells me to do.
Yeah, and then everything else follows. I like how you said it takes time, though, because we've talked about that. Nathan and I talked about that last night in Luke chapter 2, about how Jesus, like baby Jesus, had to develop and had to mature on earth, right? And I'm not placing ourselves in the same stratosphere as Jesus, but being a Christian takes time, and that's something that Nathan and I talked about. Choosing Jesus, making sure you're on the right side of the stick of truth. We should get a t-shirt with the stick of truth on it. Doing these things, practicing these things is a daily process, and it takes time to get accustomed to, just, again, like Nathan said, become a second nature. So if you aren't used to, being on the right side of the stick of truth, choosing the Lord in every scenario instead of choosing, this side or that side, start now. What better time than the present to start, and then just do it tomorrow, do it the day after tomorrow, and then just continue to do that. And over time, you'll find it to be a lot easier. You'll find yourself to be a lot closer to Christ. You'll find yourself to be in a lot more favor with Christ, and you'll live a better life. You will literally feel better about your faith.
Absolutely. The more I just said it, the more you pick Christ, the easier it becomes to pick him, right? It's like, if I decide that I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day for a month, those first couple of days are going to be kind of rough. But after about a week, I get used to it, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. Same thing with serving Christ. Same thing with picking Christ. The more you do it, the easier it gets. I think Ryland really hit that well right there. But I think we're done. I think this is all we had.
Yeah.
We hope that you've gotten something from this. Like I said, just trying to give you guys some encouragement, trying to give you something that you can use in your daily life. But if you don't take anything else from this, just remember, hell's hot, heaven's not. We'll talk to y'all next time.